Normally when I sit up on stages at events like this, I'm talking about the fundamental need for industry standards, and I'm talking about how IPSOS Iris is delivering trust and transparency for an industry that's in a pretty much constant state of flux and change. Now that need for standards is absolute, and it's one that I won't apologise for returning to, and one that I absolutely will keep on with. But it tends to be a bit philosophical, and the value of standards can be a little bit intangible. But today, I'm really pleased and very lucky to have two, well, I'm going to call them industry giants, and I don't use that term lightly. But they're not the most high-profile giants, but I've seen both of them at work, and I can promise you that their approach and their attitude and their integrity and their knowledge and experience is absolutely off the scale. And they're going to tell us how they extract value from IPSOS Iris beyond just audience measurement. It used to be that we got once a month a monolithic data set of demographic online audience data. Now we get daily and day part data, we get data about the top 100 cities and towns, and we get the TV regions, and we have audience segmentation way beyond simple age and gender. And I'm hoping that Scott, who's going to start first, will be able to give us a real flavour of how an agency such as Publicis is using the data that is there and the extra insight that is available for your colleagues and your clients.
Sure. So I guess the starting point is we're talking about media measurement. So we're interested in website audiences, and if we're looking at a .com client, it's something like an insurance business, we can go to them and say, this is who's on your website, these are your competitor websites, this is what the overlap looks like, and we're looking at addressing their business challenges. Because if you're buying insurance, you're probably not just going to go to one website for your favourite brand because you like the jingle on the TV and buy it there. You're going to go to a few. But what's going to make your shortlist? What's your process going to look like? Are you going to be starting off with the brands and then looking at the price comparisons and this kind of stuff? So this is very much focused on treating your client's website as a publisher. And that's really interesting if you're in that particular vertical. But to be brutally frank, that's not really anything new. We've had panel-based measurements that can do that for a while. It's not something you can do on your own with your first-party data, with your own Google Analytics and so on. But with IPSOS Iris, what I think is more interesting is that we're moving into a much more richly profiled panel, which gets us a much more interesting, a richer view of who these people are. So a project I'm working on at the minute for one of our a fast fashion retailer client. So you're looking at selling clothes, mostly in the high street, but there's also a lot of people buying these things online. They don't actually sell online. They use the website as a new way to drive people into the stores. And we can tell them not just this is who your audience is, and this is who's going to H&M and Zara and Next online, and give them an age and gender profile of stuff. Surprise, surprise, it's mostly younger women that are buying cheaper clothes. But we've got 38 attitudinal statements in there now. So we can start saying, well, who are the people that are most price sensitive, or who are the people that are willing to pay a premium? Which are the sites that they're going to? Which gets you away from just thinking about that sort of linear process of this is what we do and this is what our young people do and our old people do, and gets you into, you're talking about actual audiences, not ABC 1s and 16 to 34s, but the fashion conscious and the price conscious. Because when you're talking about brands that everyone knows, everyone's buying from one of these shops. And then you get into why are people going to the different ones? What is attracting these sorts of people to those sorts of brands? Not just young women, but young women who, the ones who who are willing to pay a premium for a better product, or those who are willing to pay a premium for better service. And that gets you into making strategic decisions about, what is our website for? What should our website be for? Where do we want to be in 5 years' time? Who are we really competing against in an online space? Because it's not necessarily the same brands that you're competing with in a physical space. So that's kind of shifting from, we're not really interested in the websites, we're interested in audiences, we're interested in people and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's something that's, I think, unique to the Iris data. And then the next stage is where we move on from, well, we've got all this data and we've got this beautiful dashboard, but as an agency, as a big agency group, we also have our own data and our own tools and all the other bits that we're buying in. And this is the process I'm in at the minute, is figuring out where do we plug this into other things, where we've got survey data, we've got other panel data, how do we plug all these things in together in a way that gives us an advantage, lets us generate value for our clients in a way that other agencies can't do. And that's the bit that I find both the most interesting, exciting on a big picture idea, and also not the most interesting, exciting when you're actually having to deal with the nuts and bolts of it.
Is that dealing with internal tech stacks and systems and data integrations that is not your specialty, or?
Yeah, well, you've got to deal with, the days when all the people that would work on this thing would all sit in a room together are long gone. That was true 10, 15 years ago. Now, the people that are in the building aren't all in the building at the same time, but actually we've got development teams in Florida and South America, we've got other teams in Australia, we've got, we've got to worry out legal issues around how we use this data that restrictions that didn't exist 15 years ago.
Yeah. And you talk about the difference between analytics tools and what this is. Often people say to me, oh yeah, we use Google Analytics, or we use, I won't name them, but other analytics. And while not an expert, it's relatively clear to me that analytics and measurement are not the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I think my favourite example is an older one, but King.com were one of our clients, and they're doing Candy Crush, and massive business. Millions of people playing this game on a daily basis, and all this data that's flowing in from the various app stores and usage data and so on. But with all of that, they couldn't answer the question of who is their customer. Who are the people that are playing this game and are never going to put money into it? And who are the people that are playing the game that are spending sort of £10 a month so they don't have to wait 10 minutes till they can do the next... I can't remember what the next thing was in Candy Crush. It's a long time since I played that game. But they can't answer that question of who they are. They can give you a big list of IDs or email addresses or whatever, but they can't describe them. If you can't describe them, how are you supposed to say, this is how we're going to talk to them, this is the message that we want to say to people like that, to say, play this game, it's fun.
Thank you. David, I'm going to hand over to you. You've structured your talk this morning a little bit more than Scott has, but not for any the worse for it. Often when we get publishers at events like this, you're talking to sales directors, or the revenue generators are up on stage talking on behalf of editorial, and it's a real treat for us to have somebody whose journalism beats through David's heart, and journalism is well ahead of the chase for either subscriptions or ad revenue. And it's a real treat to have you here and have you talk about how you're using the Iris data. It was about a year ago you sent me an email and said, really loving the Iris data. It's transformed the way that we are using this industry standard data. And I'm really excited to hear how you've gone about it, and a couple of examples.
Okay, thank you very much. I guarantee I'll disappoint after that intro, but we'll give it a go. Anyway, hopefully you all know Reach, as Joe said, largest commercial publisher in the UK, reaching 38 million a week. The example I want to look at today is from one of our regional titles, Birmingham Live, which is the online home of the Birmingham Mail. My job basically is bringing newsrooms and numbers together, which is sometimes really rewarding, sometimes really challenging. This kind of sums up the journey that we've been going on. We've had newsroom real-time analytics for a number of years now, and that does inform our decisions on a minute-by-minute basis. It's very much telling us what are people reading and how are they finding us. Audience insight from Iris, which I'll speak much more about in a second, has enabled us for the first time at newsroom level to understand who our readers are, and then crucially where our readers are as well, which is really important for we've got 50 regional brands around the UK, and also understanding which parts of the UK our national brands reach into. For example, there's a perception with the Express that it's very much a more southern audience. Actually, the Ipsos Iris data tells us that it skews massively into the north of England, which has changed a lot of our thinking internally. And then, of course, we ask the when and the why. So when do people feel the need to visit us, and the why do people feel the need to visit us through brand research. I guess traditionally we've always been good at answering the what and the how through real-time analytics, the when and the why through brand research, but it's the who and the where that have really transformed the newsrooms, helping us to create bigger brands, but crucially brands that are better connected. So I've tried to sum up journalism's many challenges in 3 bullet points and how it feeds into our use of Ipsos Iris. Journalism only makes its mark if people read it, and sometimes there can be a perverse celebration in some corners of journalism that a story is really, really worthy if nobody's read it. Well, actually, a story is really worthy and makes an impact when lots of people do, and I've got millions of examples of that, none of which I'll share today because of time. But news avoidance is a thing. It obviously comes through the Reuters news report and lots of other things. And we see it on a daily basis with people saying they don't want the news, but then spending an awful lot of time reading our news when they're casually consuming it. So for us, it's that about being part of people's daily lives in other ways, so that we can get the important news to them as well. And there's no shortage of places to find information these days, and one of our biggest challenges is having a readership that knows what a trusted source is versus not a trusted source, and definitely can't cover that in one bullet point or slide. But it's the who our readers are and where our readers are, which is what we get from Ipsos Iris, which really helps us focus on the four I's at the bottom there. We want every single piece of content we create to either inform our readers, which I think we do really well, to inspire our readers, what to do this weekend, or for our Life and Star channels on the nationals. Indulge our readers. This is why we write 60 stories about Liverpool Football Club every day on the Liverpool Echo website, and a similar number for Everton fans as well. Obviously about Everton, not Liverpool, because it's 10 years since we worked together, Ian, and I'm still tripping up over that one. But and then involving our readers as well. Readers expect to be able to shape what we're doing, and it's far easier to do that when our newsrooms know who our readers are and where our readers are and how that's changing over time. So I guess this is what we've always known, the what and the how for Birmingham Live. The Birmingham Mail was the byword in the 2000s for the decline of local newspapers in metropolitan areas. Massive circulation decline, was really struggling to have an impact in the city. Slowly reinvented itself online through the 2010s. And as you can see there, GA tells us we've got 31 million users. Whatever a user means, I hate the word user. It just indicates abusive relationship on both sides. And 66 million page views. But what do we do with that? We do know reliably that 39% of Birmingham Live's traffic is from social, 35% is from search. That's changed a little bit since the latest algorithm changes, which are jolly good fun. But this is where Iris has come into its own. It helps the newsroom think differently about this mass of readers that Birmingham Live has. So we now know that 12.6 million adults in the UK read Birmingham Live every month. So just being able to turn that user number into real people, it changes thinking in the newsroom. We know 3 million are under the age of 35. The Birmingham Live skews towards a female audience. The fourth bullet point, God, if I'd had this sort of data sort of 5-6 years ago when we still were trying to protect print readership, and I could point to the fact that so few of our readers online actually read a newspaper, we'd probably be in a very different place. 8.3 million parents out of the 12.6, great, but are they with under 5s? No, they tend to be with over 14s. It speaks to the life stage that a lot of our readers are at. Again, a data point that informs decisions on a daily basis, makes us do far more with school problems, for example, far more with A-level results. And then we get into the lifestyle statements as well, and this helps us build a picture that we've not been able to build before, particularly in the regional space. Every now and again we commission research and you create that model person, and that model person would be our typical reader for the next 5 years. This changes on a monthly basis. Currently 3 million of Birmingham Live's 12.6 million readers are saying through the IPSOS Iris data that cost of living is a challenge for them. 4.3 million say that they like to do things on the spur of the moment. Well, that really feeds into the way we're approaching what's on, not telling people about stuff in that's coming up in 3 and 6 months, but telling people stuff they can do this weekend. 2.5 say they'd like to go to trendy places to 2.5 million, that is, like to say they'd like to go to trendy places to eat and drink. That's a really interesting balance for us because they're cost conscious, but they like to know about the trendy places to eat and drink. And that's why, honestly, we get as much traffic when we do an honest review of a Nando's as we do of the latest Michelin star restaurant, but it's actually having the balance of the two that brings readers back. And then we come on to the where. And one of the challenges we often get thrown at us, and understandably so, is that brilliant, you're reaching 12 million people, but none of them are local, or not enough of them are local. My challenge there is actually we shouldn't confine ourselves to just seeing ourselves as local news brands, because for as long as the Birmingham Mail's existed, it's served audiences with national content as well. It just so happens that content can be served anywhere now. There's a brilliant piece in the Birmingham Mail archive about what happened on the day that the war ended. And there's a reporter noted quite sourly, I think, that people were queuing up in the city centre to buy the Birmingham Post to understand from the Birmingham Post the war had actually ended. And that's the history and connection that our brands have. That said, 46% of Birmingham's population read Birmingham Live at least once a month. Very long time since we've ever been able to claim that sort of reach within the city. So job number one is how do we engage with those people more effectively? That's where the Ipsos data helps. And the second thing is to understand how do we get into the other 54%, because we know those Brummie readers read 4 times as many page views as the UK average. And then it's also probably one of the biggest shifts we've had with Ipsos Iris is when the top 100 towns and cities profiling was revealed, not least because it led to a large debate and some offence, it has to be said, Ian, about what constitutes the top 100 town and city for the ones who weren't in there. I mean, you've upset the people of Skegness, it has to be said. But 45% of people in Tamworth read Birmingham Live. Well, that makes sense. It's a commuter belt, heartland, but it's meant that we do more stuff on Tamworth. 40% of people in Worcester already read Birmingham Live once a month, so we're trying to understand why that is. Worcester's not an area that we've traditionally gone into. That said, it's obvious commuter territory from the other side, but probably a good example of where we were still thinking along sort of print boundaries, so it's resulting in us approaching Worcester in a different way. 47% of people in Wolverhampton, again we flagged that one because traditionally we covered the Black Country, but not in a lot of depth because there was a very competitive rival there. They're still doing very, very well, but we've got half of the population of Wolverhamptons coming through our site every month. What does that mean? And crucially, who are those people underneath it? So then we move on to the when and the why. So the day parting allows us to have a better understanding of reader cohorts and what they're doing with us. That then leads into the brand research of why are they doing it with us at that time of day. Overlays with real-time analytics. So we look at the day parting in Ipsos Iris, overlay that with what we see in Chartbeat during the same time to get a sense of what we should be writing at different points of the day. Again, might not be that revolutionary to other parts of media, but certainly for sort of print legacy where I'm from, it is. And as I said, we approach the why in 2 ways. Why aren't the other 50-odd% spending time with us? That sounds a little bit greedy, but we should really be catering for the whole of Birmingham. Our data tends to show that when we look at the ethnicity segmenting that Ipsos Iris provides us with, is we reach equally across every segment, but we under-index in terms of engagement with non-white communities. And that has led across our company to a project called the Belonging Project, where each newsroom identifies the communities who we don't engage with very well and start engaging with them more, asking them why they don't feel that we're part of their lives at the moment, and that's led to some sort of revelatory changes. And then why are the people who are with us coming to us? And again, that's where the brand and reader research takes over, because we align that with the IPSOS Iris data, with the real-time data, to understand what we need to keep doubling down on as we look to turn our scale into engagement, which in turn grows our scale again into the future. And that's a whistle-stop tour of Birmingham Live.
Thank you very much. The interesting thing that you both said, you don't like the word users, and I understand kind of media has audience, but interesting, Scott, you're talking about how visitors are going to your clients' websites, and those websites aren't media. So you're talking about users, you're talking about audience. We need to find a new word that doesn't separate the two, because one of the things of Iris is it traditionally was all about media planning, and it was about how big was the audience to a media property, and do we spend advertising money on that. The transition here is about online behaviour across the UK of everything. Who visits Santander users of the app and the website versus HSBC users. And when I talk about banking, maybe the abusive relationship analogy sounds right. But is there a word we can use that combines users and audience that just says across the two, that doesn't offend either of you?
People?
I was going to go with people as well, yes.
Well, we've come from the background of unique users being that we didn't mean people, it meant devices.
Yeah.
From a time when you had a computer with a web browser and a unique user device corresponded to a person. That's absolutely not true anymore. But when we're talking about what we get from Iris, that's not telling us about unique users, that's telling us about people. And people across different devices, because you've got a single source panel at the heart of it all. You're measuring people. So you kind of have permission, I suppose, to use a word that other data sources aren't allowed to touch. Note to self and note to the room. To people, you'd go with that. Also, again, in the old days, I've been around a fair bit. It used to be all about what was the audience, who are the audience, what they're doing. But both of you have identified that actually one of the key elements of any insight is, what about the people that we're not reaching? Where's the black hole, and how do we get more people in? Does that, is it the same challenge for both of you, do you think, or where's the key to what are you really looking for who's missing, and how do you use that? I guess for me, it's a broader challenge of how do you deal with data that doesn't have a base. So, you know, if I'm looking at survey data, I can say, well, 50% of people say this, and that equates to however many million people, depending on the audience that I'm talking about. But when you're dealing with stuff like analytics or social listening, whatever, you can say, okay, 10 million people mentioned our brand in the last year. Is that a big number? Is that a small number? How do you contextualize it? And I think that's the thing, that the difference between taking syndicated data like we get from UKOM versus the data that you can collect yourself is being able to contextualize anything. You know, I can tell a client what percentage of their website audience fit in any one of those attitudinal statements. But you then need to say, is that a big number? Is that a small number? Well, actually, it's the same across all of your competitor brands. Or maybe Zara are a bit more willing to spend money on nice things, and Next are a bit more interested in getting a better experience or something like that.
David, have you had any success in having identified the people who aren't, I can't say users or audience now, people who aren't people who aren't experiencing the Birmingham. Have you had any success in going and finding them and bringing them across, or how do you judge that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think data works best often when it's quite a chastening experience initially, and there's certainly a lot of the earlier cuts of the demographic profiling was quite chastening for us, particularly around our lack of ability to engage with black and minority ethnic communities. So that led to us saying we're clearly serving some people really, really well. But there's other groups, and Birmingham is a great example of where there are 30 or 40 very distinct communities within the city who we're not doing as good a job of. So that led to the belonging project that I mentioned before. Is it coming through in the data yet? No. But the anecdotal feedback we see, and also the interest in the stories that we're writing when we've particularly been engaging with certain communities, which has included the overall refugee community in Birmingham and the city's Muslim community, which I think represents about 27% of the population in Birmingham. We're seeing more people reading stories which have been written in collaboration with those communities, and I think what's been great for the newsrooms in particular has been the warmth that they've been able to get back from those relationships which have been triggered by the data in the first place.
It's really valuable for me to pick up examples of how it's been used, so that when I am sitting on a stage talking about industry standards, I can now make it far more real. But has anybody in the room got any questions for David or Scott? Come on, be brave. Tom.
So you look at your, this is really great, thank you for sharing all of this. I think there's it's fascinating to think about these underserved populations and how best we can kind of give them the kind of content they're looking for. Did it also cause you to look inside your own newsrooms and to see how are we reflecting, how do the people inside actually understand the needs of the people that we're trying to serve?
No, absolutely. So one of our editors described it really well when he was in his office, which was a corner room of the newsroom, and he looked out across his newsroom, which is predominantly made of journalists under the age of 30, and he gets really frustrated by the fact that they all live locally, they all live within 10 miles of this office, but they all arrive at work and take their coat off and they put on this journalism coat instead, and actually the thing that could make local journalism brilliant is actually if we to a certain extent dialed down the journalism a little bit and dialed up the localness a little bit more as well. So when we see the data that we're reaching 46% of Birmingham, why not the other 54%? And that's as much about understanding the people that understanding the content that people who aren't reading us would appreciate, but also what we need to do to be different, so that we look representative of the communities that we serve. We've got a lot of big regional newsrooms where historically they were the places where you went to after your third or fourth outing on another newspaper, and actually it's probably more important for us to be bringing more people who have been born and bred in that city through into that newsroom, because not to take away from any of the fantastic journalists who have travelled around the country, but there's something special they bring to the newsroom, and we're not as good as we could be at unlocking that at the moment.
Have you flushed out the ink in their veins approach of traditional news organisations? I do remember, it's a long time ago, so for clarity, I worked at Trinity Mirror then Trinity Mirror, now Reach, for a short while. And I remember one particular regional editor who had an exclusive column by a top footballer, and he would not put it online.
Yes,
it would only go in print, and he would not allow it to go online, because this is exclusive and we pay for this and people buy our newspaper, and there's no way I'm going to let that go out online for free. Why would I do that? Has that attitude moved on?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly on our regional newsrooms, all of our regional newsrooms are digital newsrooms, and we create a printed product out of that. Because of the size of the revenue that we still generate from the national products, it's more the relationship is more nuanced. But certainly the days of people just thinking about one platform over the other are largely behind us. And it's examples such as that one that we still quote internally, because yes, it it was that when Gareth Barry moved to Manchester City, that we got an exclusive letter from Gareth Barry for the Birmingham Mail, saying how sorry he was to be leaving the fans and letting them down, brackets, but also making millions of pounds by moving to Manchester City. And we only ran that story in print, and the Wolverhampton Express and Star did what the Wolverhampton Express and Star would do if I was them, and they lifted it and ran it themselves. And for months after that, they saw the SEO benefit from that. Everybody else saw the benefit from that story apart from us. And sometimes, the older that story gets, the more potent it becomes. On the odd occasion where we're talking about where we should channel a story first, but it's now much more a conversation which is about where is this story best suited for, rather than sort of a print v digital squabble. But it's taken a long time, and I'm glad it's taken a long time, because it means that we've done it in a way that it's won over hearts and minds along the way.
I might be running out of time, but I'm going to carry on until somebody says that. But Scott, do you ever have anyone in your process, whether it's within your own agency or within your client set, who ask similar or have similar, I'm going to say, old-fashioned approaches of what media planning should be, and how you're challenging it? I guess most clients have flushed, given the lifespan of most media, of marketing directors being relatively short, a lot of people have flushed through on the client.
I think so. I think it's more, the interesting thing is where you see someone doing something that you think, I wouldn't do that, because you don't understand why they're doing it. So I keep coming back to this retail example because I've been spending a lot of time digging through the data this week, looking at it. It's just very much top of mind. But the idea that you'd sell clothes in the high street and have a website and not sell clothes through the website just seems nuts, until you realise how much of this business is built around you go in the shop and buy something, and then you pick up some more things while you're there, in a way that you don't. If I'm going to a website to buy I need a new white t-shirt, I'm going to buy a white t-shirt and I'm done. I'm not, on this website also sells socks and chewing gum. That's never going to happen. So it's more about understanding. Anything you would do in insights, you need to understand the business goal in the first place to get to what's the data that we're looking at, to try and ask the question, how do we do that? Unlocking the insights. Here's the interesting thing that matches up the people we're trying to talk with, the commercial thing we're trying to get them to do. This is how we're going to get them to do it.
Guys, I think before I get the shepherd's crook, I'm going to say thanks. David, would you push the next? You've pushed the next button for me. There you go, as if by magic. Thank you very much. It's been hugely valuable for me, even though we've done a little bit of prep on this, and you may not think so. But it's certainly given me so much more idea of bringing this data to life and making it so much more real. And I hope that's worked for other people in the room too. So thank you very much, David and Scott. Thank you.